The morning my family stole $14,000 from me started with a vibration on my nightstand. 4 bank alerts, 3 business class tickets to Rome, 1 Mediterranean cruise deposit, all charged to my card at 2:13 a.m. while I slept. When I tried to open my Gmail, the password was wrong. Then the message appeared. Password changed 1 hour ago. Recovery email, linda.harper.family, AOL.com. My mother's secret AOL account, the one she created when I left for college. And that was the moment I realized the biggest fraud case of my career was my own family. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by someone who should have protected you. Because what happened after those charges didn't just drain my bank account, it tore open years of lies my family had hidden behind holiday photos and polite smiles. And trust me, it gets darker. I didn't grow up in a loud house. No slamming doors, no screaming matches. The Harper family preferred a quieter kind of damage, a polished surface with cracks hidden underneath. Back then, I didn't have the language for manipulation or financial control. I just knew some things felt wrong in ways I couldn't explain. One of my earliest memories of that wrongness came at 11. It was a winter evening in our small suburban home. The heater had died hours before, and when I flipped a switch in the hallway, the lights blinked once, then faded out. The house fell into darkness. Mom gasped dramatically. "Roy, the neighbors will talk. This is humiliating." Dad didn't react to the electricity shutting off, he reacted to Mom's theatrics. He threw on his jacket and said, "Kids, get in the car. Steakhouse night." Minutes later, we were sitting in a booth under warm lights staring at overpriced menus. Mom kept adjusting her necklace, glancing around like she wanted someone to see us. Dad ordered the most expensive steak with a flourish. I cut into my plate, chewing slowly, watching them pretend everything was fine. I didn't understand why we were celebrating while our house sat dark and cold. I just swallowed the confusion whole, and that became a skill I'd master. By 18, I still believed my parents' version of things. So when Mom insisted on helping me fill out my FAFSA and student loan forms, I thought it was love. "Adulthood is complicated," she'd said, guiding me to sit beside her. "Let Mom handle it. I want you focused on school." Her fingers flew over the keyboard with confidence. She created a new Gmail for me, added her AOL as the backup, typed in my SSN like it belonged to her. "You'll thank me later," she said with a smile. And I did, because I was trained to treat her involvement as proof of care. I didn't know it then, but she was building access, not helping. Nate's story was different, yet painfully similar. He was 4 years younger, softer, and more trusting. At 21, he came to my apartment holding a rejection letter for an apartment application. "They said my credit sucks," he muttered. "But I don't even have a credit card." I scanned the letter and my stomach dropped when I saw the note delinquent auto loan. "Did you sign anything with Mom or Dad?" He shrugged. "Dad said putting a car in my name would help me build credit. Harper tradition, you know." But when the car got repossessed months later, Mom cried and told everyone Nate was irresponsible. Dad yelled about how that boy doesn't know how to manage money, and Nate believed them. So did the entire family. I stayed quiet. I regret that now. As for me, college became the first place I could breathe. I worked 2 jobs, drank cheap coffee, and learned to stretch $20 across a week. My parents called often, always with some new crisis that required money just this once. I said yes more than I could afford. I told myself helping them was my duty. That was another lie I swallowed. The Thanksgiving before my graduation, something shifted. I'd just gotten an internship offer, my first real career step. I announced it proudly at dinner. Mom smiled politely, nodding once. "Good. Now you can help us refinance the house. The bank likes young credit." Dad clapped my shoulder. "You're finally useful." Their words stung more than I wanted to admit. But instead of arguing, I said nothing, because silence caused fewer explosions. Even years later, after I moved to Denver for my job as a forensic auditor, the old patterns followed me. like the night they arrived 40 minutes late to my promotion dinner. I waited with chilled pasta and a sinking heart. Mom waved it off with traffic sweetheart. You know how it is. Dad didn't even say hello before asking, "So when can you help with the cruise we've been planning?" The air left my body. My promotion, something I'd worked years for, was reduced to a funding opportunity. Driving home that night, Denver lights blurred against the windshield, my chest tight. I knew something was off. I knew this wasn't normal. But I buried it again. Because that was what good daughters do. What I didn't realize then was simple. Every moment I buried was another thread in a pattern, one I would eventually be forced to confront. By the time I hit 26, the pattern was still there, quiet, polished, disguised as love. I lived in a small, neat Denver apartment where everything had a place. A home that finally felt like mine, not an extension of Linda Harper's expectations. But no matter how clean my living room was, the mess from my past had a way of seeping under the door. There was a moment, small, forgettable to anyone else, that still plays in my memory like a warning bell I ignored. I'd flown home for a weekend visit. Mom insisted on helping me organize my childhood room, her favorite excuse to sift through my things. She opened a drawer, pulled out old school papers, bank envelopes, awards. "You never throw anything away." She laughed lightly. "Let me help." Later that afternoon, I found a trash bag in the garage. Inside were shredded old statements. My statements cut so cleanly it was obvious scissors had been involved. I remember staring at the bag for a long minute, not breathing. Something felt wrong. I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready. I just tied the bag tighter and shoved everything down deeper. Years passed like that. Me noticing small red flags, her painting them white. Then came the dinner at Aunt Maggie's. It was a crisp fall evening, the kind where you can smell cinnamon and fireplace smoke before you even step inside. Her table was full, stuffing rolls, turkey, laughter. Halfway through dessert, Mom leaned forward and said, "Cassie's been forgetting things lately. She's under so much pressure at work. Poor thing can't keep track of what she says." A ripple of pity went around the table. "That's what happens when you try to do too much," someone murmured. I smiled tightly, pushing pie around my plate. But inside, something cracked. Because I realized Mom had been planting this narrative for months. Cassie's overwhelmed. Cassie forgets things. Cassie gets confused sometimes. She wasn't describing me. She was building a version of me that she could use later. I didn't know for what yet, but I felt the chill of it on my skin. Then there was Nate. Sweet, unlucky Nate. The whole family called him the one who can't handle money. Dad joked about it constantly. Mom sighed about his mistakes. Relatives repeated it like gospel. But one night in my apartment, after his second job, still in his work uniform, he told me the truth. "I didn't sign for that hospital credit line," he whispered, eyes raw. "Mom said she sorted it for me. I thought she was helping." I opened his credit report on my laptop, and my stomach dropped as the pattern came into view. Accounts he never opened, addresses he never lived at, charges he never made. He'd been carrying the consequences of their choices for years, and the worst part, he still defended them. Because he wanted to be a good son. I knew exactly what that felt like. There were so many moments, tiny, sharp ones, where the truth tried to surface. Like the Thanksgiving, when Dad told a story about me losing my wallet again, even though I'd never lost a wallet in my life. Or the Christmas when Mom pulled Nate aside and whispered, "Your sister doesn't understand family. Not like you do." Or when they bought a new living room set, claiming it was a gift from the universe, not the $1 $100 charge hidden on Lily's card. Piece by piece, the puzzle of my childhood rearranged itself into a picture I didn't want to see. But seeing the pattern clearly and accepting the pattern are two different things. I kept telling myself, they're my parents. They love me in their own way. They're just struggling. It's not as bad as it feels. I wanted to believe that so badly that I ignored every sign telling me the truth. Until the morning $14,000 disappeared from my account. That morning wasn't the beginning. It was the moment every buried memory rose to the surface. And for the first time in my life, I stopped swallowing it. The morning after the charges appeared, Denver sunlight felt harsher than usual, sharp and cold, slicing through the blinds like it was interrogating me. My kitchen felt too quiet, too clean, too still for the chaos happening inside my chest. $14,000. $14,000 taken from me while I slept. My phone buzzed again. The family group chat Harper Summer Voyage 2027 was blowing up. Aunt Denise, I can't believe Cassie is treating us to Rome. She must be doing so well. Cousin Emily, Mama Linda raised her right, Mom, Cassie insisted. She said it's time we enjoy life. Insisted I hadn't said a single word. As I scrolled, nausea crept up my throat. Photos of cruise ships, restaurants, matching outfits for family, aesthetic pictures, all of it planned around a lie I never agreed to. 8:03 a.m. I dialed the bank, fingers trembling. This is Cassandra Harper, I said. I need to report fraudulent transactions. The agent was calm, professional, more comforting than any relative I had. I read off each charge. My voice stayed steady because I was trained to talk numbers without emotion, but my chest felt like it was about to collapse. When she finally asked, "Do you know who may have made these charges?" I hesitated. A long, heavy silence. "Yes," I whispered. "A family member." She inhaled sharply. "In that case, Miss Harper, you're required to file a police report to proceed. A police report against my own parents." My stomach twisted, but something inside me hardened. I understand. Minutes after the call ended, Mom texted. "Mom, why did the airline call us saying the tickets were canceled? Fix this. Mom, you're embarrassing me. Call them back now, Dad. Pick up your damn phone." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my Gmail security log. IP access from their home. Recovery email changed at 1:06 a.m. Multiple forgot password attempts days earlier. I checked Amazon next. Then my bank login history. Then my credit line. That's when I saw it, a linked device I didn't recognize. An old iPad model. My mother's. She had been inside my accounts for years. A chill spread down my spine. Then Nate called. "Cass," he whispered. "Mom's telling everyone you're having a breakdown. She says you're forgetting conversations and acting unstable." Unstable. There it was, the narrative she'd been building for months, maybe years. "Listen," he added, voice shaking. "I checked my credit like you told me. There's an account, a medical credit line, under my name. I never signed anything." My breath stopped. Identity theft. Again. "Check the billing address," I said. He swore under his breath. "It's theirs." "Cass, what do we do?" Before I could answer, 3 violent knocks slammed against my door, loud enough to echo through my apartment. Only one man knocked like that. Dad. I tucked my phone into my hoodie pocket and hit the recording button. Colorado was a one-party consent state. All I needed was my own permission. I opened the door. Dad pushed past me immediately, the smell of stale cigarettes and aftershave hitting my nose. "What the hell did you do?" he barked. "You canceled our tickets. Do you have any idea what you put your mother through?" I closed the door calmly. "She accessed my accounts without permission. It's family money," he shouted, stepping so close I could smell the mint gum he chewed to hide the cigarettes. "No," I said evenly. "It's my money." His face twisted. "You think you're better than us because you have some fancy job. You wouldn't be anything without us." There it was, the line he always used to put me back in place. "You need to call the bank," he said. "Tell them it was a misunderstanding." "No," I said. His jaw flexed, his fists clenched. He stepped toward me, aggressive, towering, exactly like when I was a kid. "Leave," I said quietly. He laughed in disbelief. "Or what?" I tapped my pocket. "Or I send the recording of this conversation to the police." He froze. For the first time in my life, Roy Harper looked afraid. "You wouldn't dare," he said. "I already filed the report," I replied. "This isn't optional." He stared at me, rage, confusion, betrayal, ego, everything mixing behind his eyes. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard my shelves rattled. I stood there, finally breathing, finally steady. For the first time ever, the fear was on his side, not mine. By the next morning, the fallout had already begun. Not quietly, not slowly, loudly, aggressively, like my family was trying to smother the truth before it had time to breathe. My phone vibrated nonstop. "Mom, Cassie, you're scaring everyone." "Mom, you promised this trip. Why are you lying?" "Mom, your memory is slipping again. We're all worried." "Aunt Denise, sweetheart, your mom says you're overwhelmed. We love you. Take a break." "Cousin Emily." "It's okay, Cass. Stress does weird things." And then the one that made my blood run cold. "Mom, I told everyone you've been confused lately. Don't embarrass yourself further." There it was, the narrative she'd been planting. Cassie, the unstable one. Cassie, the forgetful one. Cassie, the unreliable narrator of her own life. She was building a defense long before I even accused her. By noon, my hands had stopped shaking, not because I was calm, but because clarity had replaced panic. I opened my laptop and dug deeper into my accounts. I was done hoping this was a one-time violation. Fraud doesn't start at $14,000. Fraud escalates to $14,000. And I found it. A pattern of test charges going back as far as 18 months. $14.99, $22.85, $19.04. All locations near my parents' house. All times when I'd never been in town. It felt like looking at a crime scene where the culprit had left their fingerprints on every surface. Around 2 p.m., Nate called again. "She's telling the whole family you're having some kind of episode," he said. "I tried defending you, but Mom shut me down. She said you're too emotional lately." I laughed bitterly. "Classic." "I checked Lily's credit like you suggested," Nate said quietly. "She found charges she didn't make. Hospital bills. She's freaking out." My stomach tightened. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Nate. Leaving a trail of financial victims was a habit, not an accident. Then came the message that confirmed everything. Aunt Maggie family meeting. Saturday. My house. 6 p.m. A tribunal. Exactly the battlefield Mom wanted. Pack the room with relatives, perform her version of the story, and let the crowd pressure me into silence. But this time, I wasn't walking in alone. I had evidence. Saturday came faster than I expected. The whole day felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. I prepared like I was prepping for a forensic audit, because in a way I was. Printouts, screenshots, account logs, timeline of charges, Nate's credit report, emails from the bank, my recording of Dad. I laid everything into a neat folder labeled Harper Case File. When I pulled into Maggie's driveway that evening, cars already lined the street. The porch light glowed warmly, but the tension hanging over the house felt icy. Inside, the living room was arranged like a semicircle of judgment. Relatives sat shoulder to shoulder. Dad stood by the window, arms crossed like a bouncer guarding the exit. Mom sat in the center, wrapped in her soft blue sweater, hair curled, makeup perfect, tissues already in hand. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes were glossy, her expression heartbreak perfectly staged. "There she is," she whispered shakily. "Sweetheart, we're all so worried about you." Maggie gestured to the empty chair directly across from Mom. The hot seat. I sat. The wood felt cold through my blazer. Mom started the performance immediately. "I love my daughter," she said, voice breaking at all the right places. "But she's been forgetting things. She promised the trip. She's just confused." I tried to protect her. My aunts murmured in sympathy. Someone passed her another tissue. She dabbed her eyes delicately like a woman carrying unbearable sorrow. I said nothing. Silence made her nervous. She needed me emotional to support her narrative. Then she played her trump card. She even filed a police report against us, Mom whispered, voice trembling. Her own parents. Gasps rippled through the room. Dad stepped forward. We've always taken care of her. Always. I looked around slowly, eyes filled with pity, concern, judgment. Mom had done her job well, but she didn't know I'd come armed. I opened my folder and placed the first printout on the coffee table. These, I said, are the charges. $14,000, made at 2:13 a.m. I placed the second sheet. Security log. Gmail accessed from my parents' Wi-Fi. Password reset using my mother's AOL. The room stiffened. Then I placed the page showing test charges. 18 months of unauthorized activity. Maggie leaned forward, eyes sharp. Linda, what is this? Mom stuttered. I don't know. Maybe Cassie made those I didn't let her finish. I pressed play on my phone. Dad's recorded voice filled the room. We used Maggie's card before. Nobody said anything. A stunned silence fell so fast it nearly echoed. Maggie shot to her feet. You used my card? Dad's face drained. It's not what it sounds like. It sounds like theft, she snapped. And just like that, the room flipped. Not on me, on them. Mom looked around wildly, realizing her narrative had crumbled. Aunt Denise stared at her in shock. Lily pulled up her credit app with trembling hands. Ben swore under his breath. They were all seeing it, the pattern I had buried for years. Dad stepped toward me. Cassie. I held up a hand. No more, I said. And for once, he stepped back. The room didn't breathe. It felt like all the air had gathered in the corners, watching, waiting to see who would speak next. Maggie's living room, usually warm with soft lamps and family photos, had transformed into a courtroom. And my parents, for the first time in their lives, were on the stand. Mom clutched her tissue like it was a lifeline. Dad hovered behind her arms, crossed, jaw clenched so hard a vein pulsed at his temple. Every relative in that semicircle looked stunned, confused, betrayed, but not by me. By them. I didn't sit back down. I stayed standing, folder open in my hand, because sitting felt too much like surrender. Maggie broke the silence first. Her voice was controlled, but there was a tremor under it. Linda Roy, is what Cassie showed us true? Mom dabbed her eyes theatrically. I don't know what she's talking about. Cassie's stressed. She misinterprets things. She always has. Her voice cracked perfectly on always, like she'd rehearsed the note. Dad added sharply, she's twisting things. You all know how dramatic she gets. The irony was suffocating. I stepped closer to the coffee table. This isn't interpretation. It's data. It's timestamps. It's IP logs. It's your Wi-Fi footprint on my Gmail. A hush spread across the room. Lily, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke. Aunt Linda, why is my hospital bill linked to your address? Mom froze. It was the smallest pause, barely half a second, but the entire room saw it. Ben stood up, shaking his head. And why were charges for furniture on my business card? You said the customer backed out. I watched Mom's expression shift. Pity, confusion, offense, anger. All masks she cycled through when she wanted control. You two have always been irresponsible, she snapped. I tried to help you. No, I said gently. You tried to use us. Her head whipped toward me, eyes blazing. How dare you speak to me like Dean, interrupted, his lawyer voice, slicing through the room like a clean blade. Linda, this is serious. Using someone's information without consent is a crime. Mom's face paled. I'm your sister-in-law, she shouted at him. Dean didn't flinch. And the law doesn't care about family titles. Dad suddenly stepped forward, pointing at me the way he used to when I was a child. You're blowing this out of proportion. Families share accounts, share money? No, Maggie snapped. Families ask. The weight of that sentence hit the room hard. Dad's mouth opened then closed. He shifted, deflated like air leaking from a balloon. I pulled the last document from my folder, the police report receipt. When I placed it on the table, the energy shifted entirely. Reality landed. "This isn't just a disagreement," I said quietly. "This is identity theft." Mom's eyes widened, not in guilt, but in fear. Fear of losing control, fear of being exposed. "You called the police on your own mother," she hissed. I met her gaze without flinching. My mother wouldn't have done this. That sentence sliced her cleanly. The room felt it. For a second, just a second, she looked small. Not powerful, not intimidating, just small. Dad grabbed her arm, urging her toward the door. "We're done here." But the relatives didn't let them leave quietly. Lily stood. "I'm filing my own fraud report." Ben chimed in. "Same here." Even Aunt Denise murmured, "I can't believe you did this." The first fracture in their facade appeared, then another, and another. Mom looked around the room at faces that once adored her, respected her, trusted her, and realized she had lost every single one. She turned back toward me, her voice trembling with rage. "You think you've won?" I didn't smile. But something in me settled, a clarity, a finality. "This wasn't a game," I said. "This was my life." Dad pulled her toward the door. Her voice rose, cracking at the edges. "You'll regret this, Cassie. You'll regret turning your back on family." I didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't give her the reaction she wanted. "You turned your back first," I said softly. And just like that, they walked out, slamming the door behind them. The sound reverberated through the house like the end of an era. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then Maggie stepped forward, placed a shaking hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You did the right thing." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. 2 days after the meeting at Maggie's house, the quiet felt strange. Not peaceful, more like the air right after lightning strikes, when everything is too still, too charged, waiting for whatever comes next. My parents didn't call. They didn't text. No guilt trips, no screaming voicemails. Nothing. But consequences don't need noise. They move silently. The bank emailed first. Fraud investigation complete. All disputed charges reversed. $14,000 slid back into my account like a door closing gently behind me. Then Dean called. "I drafted the cease and desist letter," he said. "No more contact. If they try to spin a story, send it to me. I'll handle the rest." I printed the letter on thick paper, the kind that feels final when you touch it. I didn't mail it yet, but knowing it existed, that was its own kind of protection. Later that afternoon, Nate came by, shoulders heavy, but eyes clearer than I'd seen in years. "They won't stop calling me," he said. "You don't have to answer," I replied. He sank onto my couch. "Do you think they'll change?" I looked at the folder on my counter, the Harper case file. Pages of screenshots, bank logs, the recording, statements from Lily and Ben, patterns that took years to see laid out in perfect order. "People don't change because they lose control," I said softly. "They change when they want to, and they don't want to." He nodded slowly, finally accepting it. That night I gathered every document, slid them into a clean, structured archive, and locked it in a fireproof box. Not out of fear, out of clarity. My entire childhood I had no proof of anything. Now I had proof of everything. They took money, time, memories, credit stories piece by piece. But without realizing it, they also handed me the one thing I'd never had before: leverage. Truth. Evidence. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something sharper. The kind of beginning that only happens when you finally stop playing the role someone else wrote for you. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs it. Because breaking out of a toxic pattern doesn't happen in one night. It happens in every boundary you choose to protect. My story doesn't end with a police report or a family meeting. It continues with clarity, with truth, and with learning to stand on my own terms. Stick around. This journey isn't over, not for me, and not for anyone reclaiming their life one hard truth at a time.